Calling to order the regular meeting of the Design Review Committee. It's 5 p.m. on March 17th. May I have a roll call, please?
Committee Member Cully.
Here.
Committee Member Deputy.
Here.
Committee Member Dryden Hess. Absent. Committee Member Jacobson Bates.
Here.
Chair Kavanaugh.
Here. Okay, let's rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have, you should have the agenda. Yeah. Are there any modifications or adjustments to that agenda? Okay. I know you have this handed out here now, and that's the general planning, and particularly with regard to the design element, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
That would be item 7A.
Yeah, so we'll have an opportunity to see that at that time. And otherwise, I think, anybody have any other comments or whatever? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve that agenda as presented.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
4-0. We have two sets of minutes to approve. One relates to the minutes, the joint meeting that we had with the Planning Commission on February 17th. And the second one relates to the regular design committee meeting, I think, that kind of immediately followed that. Are there any comments regarding the minutes of the joint special meeting of the Planning Commission and the Design Review Committee?
I do have one note on the second page of the minutes, page 5.
Okay,
The next to the last, it says carried unanimously 4-1 with member Cully absent. I think it's supposed to be 4-0.
okay, I was looking down here.
Mine.
Yes, we'll make that change.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it doesn't really change anything.
Okay, good, make that change. Let's go ahead and consider these separately. Motion then, with that change, you ready to make a motion?
I move that we approve with the minor change.
Okay. And second, that's fine.
Sorry?
That's fine.
And that is the February 17th.
That's the February 17th meeting at 5 p.m., but with the
Joint.
joint meeting with the Planning Commission.
Can I just clarify, Zena?
Please.
Since I wasn't here, can I still yay or nay, or should I not make a?
Depends on whether you reviewed them, but I
I did.
would be.
I mean, I did review them, so I'm happy to approve them, I just wasn't sure if that was.
Would you abstain?
If you reviewed them, if you reviewed the meeting itself, then you could
Okay,
be part of the vote.
okay.
Okay? Been moved and seconded, I think. It has been moved and seconded to approve those minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 4-0. We're on to the minutes of the regular meeting, the Design Review Committee that followed that. And I think, are there any changes to those minutes, the regular meeting of the DRC on that date?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
There were one or
please.
two sections, and now I'm missing, I may have got my papers mixed up, where my last name was spelled wrong.
Oh,
Under the, it's just missing an E in a couple
Oh, I
places.
see, Cully.
Yeah.
Motion
under-
up there, approve the order of agenda as presented.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
I did.
And under the January 20th meeting, so, not a major concern for me, but if it's important.
Okay, good.
What,
That's
what,
good
what
to
page
hear.
was that again?
So
It's on page 6,
Okay.
right.
and it's under approve the order of agendas presented, it's CULLEY.
Okay. I
Right,
see.
yeah,
Okay.
And wherever it's down
Under
below, the
both.
next item is said
Yeah.
the same thing, so
Those
it's
two items, yeah.
CULLEY. Very good.
We can definitely make that change.
It still sounds the same, whether the E's in it or not.
I move that we accept the minutes with the correction of Joy Colley's name spelling.
Okay. Was that a second?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and then, all in favor, say aye.
I-
Aye, 4-0. By the way, I thought that the meeting with the, maybe this should be comments later, or whatever, but I thought the minutes, or the meetings, the joint meeting with the planning commission went well. I thought, that's kind of a new thing, and if we, soon after that, we had the planning commission and the city council have a joint meeting together, so I think that's a good model in narrowly restricted cases, something you don't want to start relying on, but I think those were well done, and want to make sure that I extend my congratulations to city manager and city staff on presenting that alternative and making that work. I think it went well. I think it also was appreciated by citizens that participated both in the Zoom and online, that we had two of the groups working hard together to advance the interest of the city. Okay. Next item is sign approval application. There are two different proposals.
Do we have public communications?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. There's public communication on the non-agenda items. Is there, this is, do we have, Anna Marie, do you usually read that, or I can, or we can just generally ask for it?
I haven't, I do read it for,
City council?
City council, it's up to you. It just reminds, if we read it, of what the
Okay, I think,
context is.
I don't think it's necessary with us, but this is an opportunity for people to, if they have some public communications to make to the design review committee, either here in the room or in the Zoom space. Now's the time to do it. We're gonna limit, take no more than 30 minutes, and it's, each speaker would be afforded 3 minutes. You can speak once. Is there anybody in the room here with us in that category? I do have your, unless it's something other than, you have the sign.
Yes, and it should be on Zoom. I was informed that they were gonna be at the meeting.
Okay. But this is for an item on the agenda. I'm talking about public comment about items that are not on the agenda. People have other interests in there. So I have your speaker slip here. Is there anyone that is in Zoom space that has anything that is referring to items or a matter that is not on the agenda? Last chance. Okay, so there's nobody that is, no public communications. It says receive and file current projects.
Correct, so that's the addition that you requested as a committee for us
Oh,
to
okay,
do
sure,
something similar to the planning commission.
Yeah,
What you have here today is basically a mirror of what goes to the planning commission. We are working on some additional tweaks
Right.
for your committee specifically.
okay,
so.
these are on pages 8 through 11.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting this together at our request. This is really helpful for us to be able to look at what's happened, what's happening, and what's coming up. So I really appreciate that.
I agree, thanks.
Yeah, we all appreciate it, and it's a valuable tool for us, not only know what we've been up to, but how they mesh with planning commission and also the expectations of the city council.
and if I may.
Yeah, please.
One point, the formatting of these reports have changed from previous member or items that you've seen before, and it was making sure that we are consistent with what we're showing the city council, planning commission, and to you. So you could probably look at an older version and see things just aligned differently, but we think this is easier to read, and I
Yeah.
hope you agree.
We agree. I think I like the format, and it's easy to understand, and it's useful for us to, it's a valuable thing for us to have an understanding about where items that we've covered in the past now stand. So thank you, Madam City Manager and your staff. We appreciate that. Okay. Going back to the agenda. We have the sign approval applications. There's the first one relates to the proposed directory sign at 655 Mission Drive. Sophia, do you?
1655.
Oh, 1655. I may have misspoke. 1655 Mission Drive. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, this is for a directory sign that will replace an existing sign at the site. Something that I wanted you to know is that we're requesting a few modifications in regards to the site, to the sign. The first is that the height is 8 feet and 4 inches when the requirement is 6.5 feet. The square footage is 50 square feet and the requirement is 30 square feet. And then the business sign placed in it, the business signs on them are required per our code to be 2 square feet, but the Valley printing sign is 3.5 square feet. I do think it will be a tremendous improvement to the sign if y'all had a chance to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And both the applicant, Vern Madsen, is here, and also the person who put the sign together, Eric Malico, is on Zoom.
Okay. Very good. And so you're recommending, or the staff is recommending, that the sign height be reduced to 6.5 feet, which is the maximum? No, what, I'm sorry.
There's 3 modifications.
Okay.
One of them is for height, and the reason being is that there's a lot of landscaping around it, so we're trying to raise it up a little above the shrubbery in that area without pulling out the shrubbery to meet that height modification. The other reason is the way the items are laid out, it just reads better from the street. And so normally we would not grant or recommend modifications, but in this case, the signs are very old, they've been there for a long time, they're being upgraded, and I think this will definitely be a benefit to both the building as it sits, as well as to the public being able to see the signs.
Okay, understood.
Just to clarify on the Valley printing sign, that's their existing sign was already approved at a larger size previously.
Exactly.
Got it, okay.
Okay, good point. Vern, Mr. Mattson,
Yes.
do you have anything that you'd like to share with, you come up and identify yourself, please, so we can get you on the record. And
Vern Madsen, I'll just make a few comments regarding the size of the sign. I just drove by it, I've driven by it numerous times obviously, but I just drove by this evening again on my way here looking at it. And if you look at it coming down, going west on Mission Drive, you have the liquor store. You can't even see one building beyond the liquor store. That wall is two stories high. My building is essentially 2 stories high. It is in back. The liquor store is 2 stories plus, and the building beyond that, which is Subway or whatever that building,
yeah,
that's basically a 3-story building.
Yeah.
So this is slightly oversized, but the reason we did it was because we wanted to bury down lighting, LED down lighting, in some way to bury that and hide that. And so we came up with this kind of a roof idea. And that does add to the height of the sign, but we think it's pretty typically sold on. And other than that, the existing sign actually is oversized. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, it's been so long, and it's been there for, ever since Gene and I started the restaurant, so I mean, we're talking 50 years.
Yeah. Okay,
And it has been vandalized, and it does need to be fixed.
okay. Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
I just had a quick question about the coloration. Is this meant, the color's meant to match the building
Pretty much.
to the,
It-
right?
I mean, I'll get up here where everybody can hear me. Yeah, my building is the colors of these that you see there.
Okay,
And the building, the liquor store building is essentially in that same family. And so, yes, we just kind of wanted to make it disappear, to be as not as obvious as possible, and just have you focus on the icon signs. And that Valley, just to make a point, that Valley Oak crane sign, that's actually kind of a neat sign that was made for Brian by a friend of yours, and it's all glazed ceramic, and it's in 4 sections, and there's no way of shrinking it down or changing it, so I think it's kind of neat sign.
yeah, so the basic colors are the color of your
Right,
buildings.
right,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay,
fits
so
in,
that
and
makes-
the color codes are exactly what I've painted my building.
Okay, it's great.
Thank you, and we appreciate the letter you sent to the committee as well.
Thank you.
It was a good, positive letter, I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments here?
I did have one other comment, because I got up next to the sign and looked at the whole thing, and
Mhm.
I'm looking at a nice rendering here. It's a very sort of prominent placement of this sign. I know it's obstructed by the hedges and things like that, but the fact that, I mean, it's right in that traffic area, people walking by and people driving by and seeing it from the street, and this is sort of I'm wondering about, like, everyone else's opinion on this, but to have a fast food, iconic logo just plopped on there, without trying to look like part of the sign, in other words, the Valley Oak, or the Valley Oaks
Mhm.
sign. It's incongruous to me, and it's also, saying, hey, look, we've got fast food chain restaurants right here, and it's a little bit of a concern that these two signs don't at least have the same kind of shape behind them, or, so Valley Oaks is square, the Domino's is just there. Could that be incorporated into a containing piece?
Well, I can tell you right now, I went to, I talked to Domino's about it. And this isn't the local people that run Domino's. Domino's is huge, and in fact, these people that own this business own 127 of them.
Whoa,
Throughout California and Arizona.
jeez.
Okay, so this is a big business. But I've gone to them and I'm saying, could we shrink this a little bit? Could we make it so it's not 7/8 of an inch sticking out and it's just a flatter sign?
Right.
They can't do that. Domino's dictates to them what they have to do, and they're not changing it for soul name. And as far as, we've got Subway next door, we've got Trump's up the street, we've got, yes, Domino's is a fast food, but that sign, Domino's sign, has been there for almost 40 years. So,
Yeah. And I
this
understand.
isn't something that's gonna be changed just like that.
Yeah.
I just thought, as long as you're going to all this effort to make a quite nice and very solid sign, that if there was some way to at least present that logo in such a way that felt a little more like,
I don't know how we could do it.
Thank you,
okay, thanks.
thank you.
Well, is there a way, Vern, that it could go, like Brian asked, in some kind of frame that puts it into the same size as the Valley Oaks, or the same kind of, it's that, because if our committee was tasked with approving a sign of this style, that it would not be passed. So I don't know, maybe staff needs to direct us, is this grandfathered in and we don't have a say over that? I don't know what the status on that is.
So I think the question that's being asked is the domino function itself free-floating, or can it be framed with just a outline like this?
Well, actually, my question is more, is the Domino's sign as it currently is presented, is that grandfathered in some way? Because clearly it isn't conforming to current standards or anything that's been used since the city became a city.
So I'll take it one step further. Corporate, fast food, we only have two, and those are grandfathered in.
Yeah.
And so what's related to those corporate restaurants is signage and marketing, and that's what we have here. So I don't think we can alter what is tied to the corporate signage of the fast food. So I think what we could ask is, can we frame it somehow to be similar to Valley Oak? Or does it have to be free-floating in the space that it's being laid out in? And
I would make an assumption from a corporate level that even putting a box around it probably would take quite a while to get an approval on that from their corporate, whether they would ever approve it. Now, obviously, we're coming up against, well, who's in charge here, Solvang, but given the fact that it's already in place, I'm assuming pursuing, putting a box around it might be a long, arduous path that wouldn't have a result. Just because I know from corporate standpoint, logos have to have a certain amount of space around them and all these different things. And
Which is why I asked, is it grandfathered in?
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently it is.
Yeah.
And there's obviously no expiration date on that, like 50 years. I mean, this is how long you've owned the building, 50 years, right, Vern?
Close.
Yeah, Domino's has been there a long time.
And Domino's been there a long time, they've grandfathered in, and I think, at some point along the way, the city had determined that franchise food operations is better for Buellton than Solvang.
Well, we've had that argument for
Sure.
years.
But we have to,
I just realized we bought it exactly 50 years ago.
yeah, well, that's what your letter says, 1972. Yeah.
the Domino sign is within compliance, isn't it? Besides the fact that it's a franchise, I mean, it's built the way, and in fact, you talked about the depth of it, maybe isn't your preference because it doesn't match the Valley Oaks, but it does have what we look for in a sign as far as kind of 3-dimension. In my mind, I don't love it like you, Brian, but I'm not sure that it's something we can really, I'm very pleased about, obviously, the sign upgrade. That's a no-brainer, right, compared to what the sign looks like now.
Yep.
I think it helps that there's no word Domino. It's their logo. It's like the Golden Arches,
Yeah.
it doesn't need the name.
And it seems like it's a given, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just, that's
That's
there.
I'm inclined to.
And it has the right colors.
Yeah, right, it's colorful.
There we go.
It's not yellow and orange.
Yeah.
The sign's a huge upgrade, very nice, the LED lighting will be really good. I wish it wasn't quite so tall, but I also understand that you want it to project above the existing wall hedge thing there, so it will be a vast improvement from what's currently falling down.
Sure.
Yeah, I did this a little out of order, but I should have also asked if there's anybody else in the room that has any comments about this. Anybody else in Zoom land have any comments about this? Apparently not, okay.
And I'd just like to do this.
Oh, wait, there is a, Brian,
Signs.
there he is,
There's my hand, I see it. Can you hear me?
yes.
Hi, I am just curious with that sign, I'm Brian 805 Signs, if that gets approved at 4 square foot signs, even Domino's sign, if that one is 2 square foot, but then you tip it at an angle, that square becomes bigger. Can I do that in the future? Because that's what I will push, if directory signs can have bigger than 2 square foot. So that's just my concern and looking at it and how tall it is and the whole deal. How light are the LEDs? How bright are they? How tall is the sign? Can I make a sign that tall? Those are just my questions.
Valid arguments, and a little bit of my concern, so, Vern, I have a question for you, and maybe you wanna come back up to the podium again. Is it possible that you can maintain this same style and make it just a little bit shorter? I see space where I, could conceivably see it could be brought down a little bit. I don't know how to address the Domino's. I guess, again, there is the matter of it being grandfathered in, which means it is outside of our boundaries of what can be done, in response to what Brian just brought up in his comments.
I don't know, I'll have to talk to my sign people. Now I think we got 2 sign people that might be, anyway. I don't know, to be honest with you. I really would like to see it up above where you can actually see it. I have an alternative here. I can just redo the sign. And I want to do it right. Okay, everything my dad and I have done in this town, we've done right, or we've tried to do it right. But if I get boxed in where I have to make super changes and go to Domino's and tell them we have to put a border around there, they're not gonna buy that, I'll tell you that right now, at least I'm pretty sure of it. So,
I think it's a given here that Domino's isn't gonna fall within our purview because of the extenuating circumstances, so that.
The existing sign is higher than your current requirements.
Right.
It's 90 inches, it's 7.5 feet, and versus 6.5 feet. So, I could just keep it at the existing, and I could make something a lot cheaper. But this is gonna be aluminum, and it's gonna be,
It'll be an upgrade.
smooth trowel,
Yeah.
stucco appearance, and it's gonna be,
At about the same size, is that right?
and we're talking about another 11 inches.
11 inches.
Is there a way to get your,
And when you look at 11 inches with all those buildings behind it, it's infinitesimal, it's nothing.
is it possible to take that design just down to where it's the existing size? I think what we're talking about is what exists, and that's, to Brian's point, that's how things often stay the way they are because they were that way and they were approved previously that way, and I think we would all feel better making an approval on something that was already existing, which is in the case of the Domino's sign.
I don't know how you can do it and get that roof and make it look right. Otherwise, if you bring that down 11 inches, that's just gonna be so flat, it's just not even gonna look right. It's not gonna be in balance. But,
How about coming down a few inches closer to the shrubs?
Top of the hedge.
Yeah,
well, now you're getting to the point where you can't see the iconic signs, the individual signs. It's not just the hedge, it's the cars, it's,
is sort of precarious where it is in the parking lot. You're right, when there's a car parked there, now you're dealing with the issue of having a car in the way of the sign or blocking the sign, I guess.
So the other option is, if you look at the existing sign where the address is, the 1655, basically you're cutting off the apex or the feature above there, and then you're the same size as the previous sign. So the element that's being added is almost an architectural feature to mimic the building. And, it's a judgment call in this. We thought it was a good way to transition the sign that currently is there to mimic the building.
Yeah,
Brian brings up a good point. Can everybody from this time forward add a architectural feature to their signs to continue to creep up the height?
right.
You know, we were looking at it as being above the landscaping was the important thing, not really
But it's
focusing.
an exception to the
Yes,
standard.
yes.
What would be your opinion, Lori, on the domino sign being at an angle and then therefore taking up more square footage? I wouldn't personally see it that way because, but I guess maybe it does take up more square footage. I mean, does it?
The way the ordinance is written, it's, you draw a box around all of the, square box around all of the extending features, and that's the sign.
Got it.
Obviously, this is a rectangle tipped on the side, so it actually does meet the, pretty close to the ordinance, but that description of the, how to measure the sign is skewed here.
Sure, yeah.
If you could find a domino sign anywhere in the country that isn't at a diagonal,
I'm sure that's part of their
Yeah.
registered trademark.
Not so,
And if I understand, our committee does have the discretion in the code to be able to work a little bit outside of what
Absolutely.
the rules are. So given the fact that have signs that are being grandfathered in, that are a little bit bigger by definition, given the location and the situation,
Of this particular stuff.
for this particular sign, I move that we approve the sign as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded that the sign as proposed be approved.
With the 3 modifications as outlined.
Yes.
With what now?
With the 3 modifications as outlined in the staff
Oh,
report.
that's right, that's outlined in the separate.
And I'd also like to have the note that, about the grandfathered in sign, so that if this comes up again,
Yeah, that limits the
Purview.
degrees of freedom we have.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. 4-0. Thanks a lot for the work, thank you so much.
thank you very much.
Looking forward to a nice new sign.
We are gonna get started on it as soon as we can.
Thank you so much. Okay, the second sign relates to the approved wall sign and projecting sign for 1660 Copenhagen Drive.
This sign is being brought to you, before you, for the building on Copenhagen Drive, the little 300 square foot building. And we've reviewed it and it meets all of the requirements for the code. And we are recommending approval. And if you have any questions, our staff is here to answer them.
Okay.
So, I don't have any argument, it's a nice looking sign, and it's all within code and all that kind of stuff, but my one little comment would be that it seems there would be an opportunity, I think, to maybe bring some like Danish red flag color into it or something, and that's more of a, like, you don't have to, but as a sign, it just kind of disappears. And if there's not any other good reason, that even if, the black type on the white background could be red, or that background itself could be red with white type, or the gray goes to red, it's not a have to do, it's just in terms of impact.
Outline the letters in red?
Well, or the letters become
Yeah.
the red, or the gray part is red, or some way to bring in like just color, and that's just about readability and
Brian, your hand is not up, but your face is. I wonder if you could comment on that observation.
I'm new to Zoom, so sorry about the hand.
That's fine.
We are mocking after the Copenhagen house, which we put in 7 years ago. So these signs are very similar to that. Same owner, same design, same branding. They haven't had any problems with their colors, their style. It's very minimalistic. You have the Sausage Garden behind, which has a lot of reds and a little different scheme.
Yeah.
The Ableskeeper, who's there, a little bit more minimal. So I don't see a way that we would put red into that sign and have it look good still.
Okay.
Well, you could, it's not yet, and I was just throwing that out there that it lacks impact and like drawing power.
I guess what you're not seeing is that it's gonna be a dimensional carved sign, so it's gonna have, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of carving, it's gonna have shadows, it's gonna be a nice thick solving type sign with the carve. So, and that's hanging, those doors are 8 foot tall, so they're pretty massive, and then you have the sign, which will be, 7 foot from the ground. But you're not gonna miss them when you walk by. The flat image is hard to do justice, for what the sign will look like in real life.
Okay, no, you do great work and the dimensional signs are beautiful.
Yeah, and these are all within the limits of the sign ordinance.
Yeah.
And it's on brand for the style that they're working with these, a neighboring building that's part of the property there or nearby.
Just the thought.
And the minutes will reflect that thought. Okay, so, okay. Any other comments? Anybody in the room have any comments? Anyone else? Brian, do you have any other comments?
No, sir.
Okay, anyone else in Zoom land? Apparently not. Is there a motion regarding the proposed wall sign, projecting sign at 1660 Copenhagen Avenue?
I move to approve as presented.
I'll
Okay,
second.
motion been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Great. Okay, now, the next item is the exterior review of short-term vacation rentals at 393 Alicel Road and 1688 Oak Street. Summarized beginning on page 34.
I'm just gonna speak out here. I'm gonna recuse myself from this item.
Okay? Do we notice?
So I think you need to step out
Got it.
and come, if you want to come back for
Yeah.
the next item.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so
Yeah,
maybe
thank
someone
you.
running. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is, okay, we have a speaker here? Okay, good.
Yes.
Well, we'll go ahead and make the
Now, let's
presentation.
let's have the presentation of the staff recommendation, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Okay. The project coming before you is just down the street. It was previously a little shop, and that now has been converted, or is going through the conversion for 2 vacation rentals. All of the buildings are remaining that were currently on the site. They have been renovating the inside, and now we're coming forward with exterior improvements that they are proposing. They've provided colored material, or color chips that you have, and they are a combination of different beiges, with one of them in the center, a different color that was outlined in the staff report. We also are providing, or they're also providing the upgraded landscaping in the
Yeah.
courtyard area and around the buildings and fencing. They're also providing some yard area for seating. And the one thing that they're not going to be providing is signage for this site. It'll just be cute little old building in Solvang. And so the applicant is here today. We are recommending approval of the recommended items, and look forward to your comments.
Do we have actual swatches? I mean, I know we have a printout, but can we see the actual, because you know how those vary?
Yeah.
Well, we can have those in a couple of minutes if you want to just
Yeah,
continue
that's
the
fine.
discussion.
Would you like to come
Sure.
and state your name and your relationship to this facility?
Yes, I'm the owner, my wife and I are the owners, I'm Lowell Lash and my wife Terry Lash.
Okay, great.
And I do have color boards that I submitted, so I think Sophia went to get those.
Yeah,
And so these buildings were built in 1928, and we've left them as is on the outside, so we're just seeking to change the colors and upgrade the landscaping and redo the exterior lighting on the buildings.
okay.
So want to keep it clean and simple and add a little interest to the surrounding buildings that are all, everywhere you look, they're white buildings, you know.
Yeah.
So we've proposed something a little more exciting and I think in keeping with the Danish town.
Okay, let's see, I had a thought.
Well, I think there's some concerns, and perhaps you've already heard about that in regards to the exterior lighting and
Yes.
the dark sky
Yeah,
compliance.
but, yeah,
Maybe you can address that.
I will, yes. So I read the ordinance and, hold on a second, I'll pull up. So the ordinance, which is, I'll just read the ordinance. It says that all exterior lighting shall be used to illuminate areas to provide nighttime safety and security while conserving energy, protecting the night sky, minimizing glare and light trespass, and shall be directed toward any areas zoned or developed not be directed toward any areas developed for residential mixed use or hotel motel uses. And so basically my response to the letter that was received by We Watch, I believe, and it says just this, that as you are aware, the project resides on a busy corner and many pedestrians pass by daily and at nighttime. Additionally, there are steps and ramps leading to the entrance doors of both addresses. Following is our reasons for the fixtures we have proposed. Number one, the fixtures shall be used to provide nighttime safety and security per the code's first sentence. And the second item is features shall be fully shielded except in the interest of safety. So I would, since we do have steps and a ramp to the front doors, I'm proposing that we not shield the lights, but just use a smaller lumen bulb that is, excuse me, 250 lumens and an LED light. And then the third item I say, lighting is architecturally compatible with the character of the city and is in scale with both the buildings and what is on other properties. We believe this fixture to be old world lantern style and is appropriate for the village per code section 8.1. And then we will use timers where appropriate on the buildings per code section 8.2. So I think that pretty much addresses all of the items in the ordinance for the lighting.
Okay. Are there any comments here?
I think we've got somebody on Zoom who,
I know, we have Susan
yeah.
or
Susan Ball.
Susan, yeah?
Okay? Okay.
Okay, yeah, please proceed. And I think we've all had the opportunity to read your letter, and we appreciate your efforts to ensure that the projects that are presented here are compliant with the dark sky requirements.
Okay, I think I need to answer
the applicant's comments. I'm Susan Bott with the Save Our Stars Committee of We Watch. And yes, we read that all exterior lighting fixtures shall be fully shielded except in the interest of safety. But it is very easy to find lights that are downward facing, but still provide illumination for the sidewalk, the steps, the ramp, whatever you need them for, without being, the light that they're proposing is just the opposite of fully shielded. It's just, it goes straight out on, it looks like 3 sides. And I don't think that the safety issue would apply because, as I said, you can get downward facing lights and you can get landscape lights that are low and still illuminate sidewalks and stairs and anything that needs to be for safety. So I really think that there are some much better options than this light that they proposed. Thank you.
Okay,
May I respond?
please, yeah.
Okay, so as you're probably aware, the building sits at a minimum 2 feet above the sidewalk. So even if the lights were fully shielded, you would still be able to look up and see the bulb. So fully shielding the bulbs would be ineffective. And second of all, the light fixtures are all on the buildings, and the steps that lead to the building are at least 15 feet away from the building. So downward lighting would be ineffective in lighting the stairs.
Well, I've got to say that I'm working on a project right now and we have a similar situation, but we have very effective lighting that creates a really nice big pool of lighting that definitely takes it out to the area that you need. And I think there's beautiful fixtures that'll meet your needs and still meet the city code. So I really feel as though I hesitate to allow exceptions because that's not a safety issue in this case. And I think you can find some, I believe, some very nice fixtures that'll still do what you wish, and I have to compliment you on upgrading the building, on your color palettes, your plans. It's going to be a big improvement on that corner. And I hope that you will also consider being, the lights is also being an improvement, and we do need to stick with the codes when there's not safety issues.
I think if you look at the design for the landscaping, the gates that I'm proposing and the hedge will block the lighting, so that will effectively block all the lighting that would illuminate the steps.
I do have some concerns about the hedge, and I wanted to ask the city that, I'm looking through my pictures here. We've got a nice way of being able to screen things. My concern lies on the corner of Alisal and Oak, and the setback there and the visual, and I can see you've got it rounded here. I'm not quite sure what the codes are for the maximum height on that corner, and I want to resolve the light thing. How, maybe staff can answer this, how tall are you allowed to have the barrier on a corner? And how far is the setback for that? That's what I'm looking at here.
So it's a little bit complicated in explaining how it is, but what you look at is a line of sight triangle off of the corner. And within that triangle area, you want to not have anything more than 3 feet in height. So that a car, a driver can look over the top of that.
I went by there today where you've got the new hedge planted.
Yes.
And I noticed, because I was coming there and turning down Alisal, and right now I can see through them, and I was thinking, wow, if those get to 4 feet, they're creating quite a visual barrier on what's a very busy corner. And I understand your desire to have a private garden area there, and I'm thinking that that can be achieved, but perhaps it requires either a lower hedge where you currently have it planted, or the setback needs to be further, but I need to defer to staff on that one.
We will, we'll double check that and work with him on making sure he meets that requirement.
Okay, so that would be my only comment, because there's a couple
That's
places
a
in
good
town
observation.
where people have built on that kind of setback, and it's become a real big safety issue. And as we know, that corner's not getting any less busy,
Right.
just the opposite. So appreciate you working on that.
Does staff have comments regarding, relating to the exterior lighting? Your recommendation is all exterior lighting fixtures will be replaced with fixtures shown in attachment E.
I think that the explanation that was brought forward by the applicant is, has merit. I think that we could work with him on maybe establishing one more light, having the down light fixtures and maybe one more light post in the area where the steps are, so that we can still meet the dark sky compliant requirements, shielding down, but identifying those safety areas throughout the property. So I think we can work with him on that.
Okay,
Okay?
because I think that if we need to keep that dark sky compliance
Yeah,
in effect.
yeah, I think that's a great solution.
Good.
Because I can take these lights and make them, make the cutoff in these fixtures.
The staff could work with you to be,
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
identify
Right.
fixtures and those that address some of the issues that have been
Yes.
identified, but we also, I think what you've done there, what you're planning on doing is really terrific.
Thank you.
And it's really right on the border, right, of where is the
The TRC.
TRC south? Where's the border?
There's one more lot south.
Yeah.
One more lot south is
Yes.
the border boundary, okay.
So the fixture itself is okay as long as I make them cut off
Yes.
the bulb. Okay, great.
And the other part too is that, I mean, it sounds like you may have already have fixtures. The committee is great at helping find fixtures that meet your design and also meet the dark sky compliance.
Yes.
So if you need anybody to assist with that, they're great resources
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
and have been very helpful.
Okay, I agree. All right, are there anything else?
Colors
Yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah,
Because we have
please.
to kind of do everything here. Color boards, very important, which is why I asked.
Yes.
There's definitely a significant variation. The brown is just on the kind of garage
Correct.
building. I was just curious what the reason you chose that, not that I
We have a
just liked
future
it.
idea for the barn, or
Ah.
garage rather, excuse me.
Yeah, I can already hear some of that.
And so, we would, come back to the board with something, proposed for that garage.
Okay, right, and certainly it's a much more pleasant color palette. It will, I think, enhance the entire area.
Thank you.
I agree, and it's, again, thanks for actual chips, because
Yes.
I
Yes,
was looking at
yeah, this doesn't
the
look nearly as
white is
good.
actually lighter the way it printed on here, which made it look like
Too much
everything else.
contrast, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
not it. But anyway, this is
Okay.
great, looks good, so, I mean,
Thank you.
and I like,
to me.
right now it has that kind of bright, almost, as we call it, Dodger blue trim, and this will be a
Right.
big improvement.
Yes.
And I hadn't realized that it was almost 100 years old. I knew it
Yes.
was one of the earlier buildings that are still intact, so congratulations on maintaining that integrity of the appearance of it and making it look better.
Yep.
So I move that we approve the plan as presented with the provisions that the lights meet the dark sky compliance and that the hedges are also built or planted within the areas allowed for visual setbacks.
It's
Lori,
called-
help me.
Line of sight.
Line of sight.
Line of sight triangle,
All right.
yes.
Well, I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve this, the proposal as modified or as amended. By the way, I'm not gonna say it now, I'll talk about it later. Okay, I think, well, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3-0. Now, if.
301 recused.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but if our quorum is 3,
Mhm.
2 prevails, 2 votes prevail.
Is that right?
You
Okay.
would need to have 3 votes for
That's what I
the
thought.
committee of the 5.
Yeah,
You're a committee of 5, so you always need 3 votes.
Oh, you always need 3 votes. So I didn't know if it was, the quorum was 3, meaning that they were authorized, but then it's a majority of the quorum.
no,
It's not the majority of the quorum.
You would be the 3 because you're a committee of the 5.
yeah,
Okay.
majority of them.
Okay,
Yeah, so I'm happy that we could make a decision.
Yeah.
I guess it's a good thing I changed my vacation.
Yeah, I-
dates.
Red, I was a little afraid when I
Yeah.
saw you were gonna not be here.
yeah,
Thank you, board.
thank you, thank you. Susan, thank you too. Appreciate your comments.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, go to the next item now under same category, which is exterior design review for single-family residence at 781 Greenport Canyon Road, beginning on page 56 of the materials.
Good evening, Lori Tamura again presenting. The project before you is a single-family home on Friedensburg Canyon, halfway up the hill on a vacant lot. This project was approved several years ago with a condition that it be, the new house that would be on this site would be reviewed again, previously by the Board of Architecture review, but we'll bring it before the Design Review Committee. The issues, the items that were most important for the Planning Commission at the time that this parcel was approved is the scale of the building, the colors, materials, and also landscaping and lighting. So the site is, again, on a you wouldn't be able to see it from Friedensburg Canyon Road.
Right.
You could take a private
I
drive.
looked. We all looked.
And so we're here today to go through this exercise to describe how this building is going to be built. It's on a hillside. There will be retaining walls on several levels.
Yeah.
And it's a one-story building.
Two-story.
And two-story, yes. And it is designed so as to blend in with the topography and still, and also with the colors that are being proposed to blend in with the side of the hill. The issue that we really were looking at is how many trees would be planted, what kind of screening would be provided, and I think the applicant has brought forward a package that I think addresses those issues. So we're here to respond to any questions that you have and listen to the applicant.
Okay. I appreciate that. A couple points of clarification for me. When did the proviso or the condition that the architectural design materials and colors are to be approved by the Board of Architecture Review, or that's our predecessor agency, prior to the issuance of was that in a planning commission order?
Yes,
Okay.
it was a condition of approval for
Okay.
that project.
We're just trying to figure out why we're doing this.
Yeah,
I assume that's related to the fact that there was like a lot split and
yeah, it was a, yeah, so you are splitting it into 2 lots.
Correct. The existing house was on the property already when the lot split occurred, and this was the condition, one of the conditions of approval for the tentative parcel map.
And just to clarify, this is on the other side of the creek,
Correct.
from Fredensburg Canyon Road, it's across the creek, you know,
Right.
what is that, can't remember the name of the creek there.
Adobe?
Adobe Creek, yeah, okay.
I have a question. I have, one of the sheets you have here is
Too small to read?
too small to read. It's
What's the sheet number?
It's C1.0. It is actually the layout of the site of the house that we're talking about on parcel 2. And in parcel 1, is there a house there now?
Yes.
I don't know where the house is, and I don't know why we would leave off the footprint of the house, the existing house, off of that drawing. I know it's, somewhere it says it's not relevant or something, but it seems to me maybe the location of the house on that first lot, parcel 1, is relevant, maybe relevant, maybe not.
We're gonna try to pull up an aerial photograph for you, for tonight.
Okay, I mean, I've
Yeah.
got, you know,
Yeah.
that's not particularly helpful because the
How many
trees canopy. The other question I had, which again, you may know, were you involved in just the design of the building, or were you involved in the drawing of the line of the parcel?
I'm Ulysses McEwen, the owner and builder
Okay.
for this. Just
So
to,
you were involved, so
Yeah.
you own the whole lot then?
I own parcel 2, which is now
Okay.
781 Friedensburg Canyon Road.
Okay, I see.
Parcel 1 is still owned by the previous owner.
Okay.
Uh,
Another question I have about it is, it's not just a straight line, you have kind of a panhandle there. On
Correct.
the south side of your lot.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
There was a minimum requirement for the
Okay.
lot split by the previous owner
Okay.
for a certain size, so they kind of made that edge around their
Okay.
property. There is an easement there, a landscape easement, so I'm not able to develop that area anyway.
Okay,
But that's the reason for the unique shape.
roughly, where is the house, you know, can you show me, or maybe on parcel 1? I just wanted to get a sense of,
I think he's.
seems to be, you know, it's,
This is the aerial photograph, and it'll be located right here.
So here's Freeman's board.
okay. And
You
so,
really can't see
yeah, and
That's a
the
hill,
place with the
right?
little dot on it there, that's the existing house?
Yes, and these are the two behind, and the two lots behind that were mentioned in the staff report.
And we can't get a sense of the topography there, but that is a rather steep hill,
There,
correct?
right
It's-
in here, it's a canyon.
Okay,
it. And
That's what they call
that's the sort of private drive up here.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew just what.
it crosses the creek, okay.
Yeah.
And on the grading and drainage plan, we do show an aerial image there, which does show that residence as well.
Yeah.
So it is within the plan.
That's
site.
what, that she just showed us that.
Right.
Ours is so small.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said we couldn't read it, so I was hoping they were gonna show it on the
That gives me
screen.
a better idea
Right.
where the house is, and, because driving by, you can't tell exactly.
Right, and even from my property where my house, or the future residence will be, you can really barely see that house as well. It's obscured by trees and,
Right.
yeah.
And I presume then the same with, the road down there is also pretty out of view?
No, you can't see it
Yeah,
from,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
And you're gonna be taking out some oak trees, but it sounds like the plan is to replace them as required, and it looks like the trees being removed in question are these 3 here right by the house, but then there's a 4th. So really just what sort of one large tree?
Correct.
The understanding, and then,
So my question to staff is, I know there's certain rules and restrictions in regards to oak trees, if I understand correctly, but I don't know what those rules and restrictions are. Can you fill us in on that?
Sure. So first of all, the small oak trees that are around this building site are gonna be removed. And so the landscape plan shows the replacement of the oak trees. A mature oak tree, I'm gonna say within 6 inches in diameter, that's considered a mature tree. You're going to look at the canopy of the tree, which then becomes the drip line. The furthest outside ring of the canopy is the area that you do not want to have construction or grading to occur. Once you start encroaching into that drip line, then you start to damage the root zone. And so, that's why in this case, because of how limited the development area is for this site, we, either, you make a much smaller house, or you remove those trees for the purposes of grading and the retaining walls, and then replant new ones.
What's the setback? Is it 5 feet from the drip line is the setback? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
So if he wanted to do construction within that drip line and that 5 feet kind of boundary around it, that would be prohibited?
It would be, in this particular case, those small oak trees are in areas that will be graded for the retaining wall because you're trying to work on such a steep slope and establishing those building paths. And so, in this case, we're agreeing to allow those oak trees to be removed and replanted.
Okay, and I ask that in part because oaks have tap roots, so they have amazing capacities too.
They have a tap root, but they also have roots that go out that mirror the drip line, and that's part of.
And they can't be graded around and have a retaining wall built, clearly. So, okay, I get that.
And if I may, so there's one, I would say, medium-sized live oak tree that is to be removed. It's within there's a really small building area here on this property, really confined to around 4,000 square feet where I can really build anything at all. So there is one medium mature live oak tree to be removed. The other two are so small that anyone would really assume that they're not mature, although one is just barely over 6 inches at breast height. So there are 2 mature trees, and per my mitigation measures, they will be replaced at a 1-to-1 ratio. Those other 2 that you see that are kind of clouded there in green, I'm not sure if you're looking at the inventory plan that I have.
We just have a,
It's on this page here, you can kind of see it.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Page number?
It's page,
TIP 01 tree inventory plan.
TIP 01.
TIPO one,
So this was put
That's
together,
The last year.
Okay.
yeah.
there we go. That's not it. Here it is. So
Yeah, I had a certified arborist who prepared this for me, and
yeah,
a lot of effort went into protecting those 2 mature live oaks, which are very large and are definitely my favorite part about this whole property. So, in fact, the driveway I think it will be constructed in a way to miss those strip lines as much as possible. There is one smaller retaining wall which will encroach into the drip line of one. However, my arborist has stated that shouldn't affect the health of that tree, and he'll be there present to monitor all the construction, and any roots that'll be disturbed, he would need to be on site to monitor that as well.
I think it's great that you're doing all that you can to keep the trees, and I'm sure that'll only enhance your new home on that location. Appreciate you explaining all those details to us as well. And I find it interesting that a coast oak is mature at 6 inches, because at my home, the birds plant oaks all the time. And my 80 by 100 lot could be an oak woodland if I let everything grow. And the one that I did allow to grow was 6 inches in less than a year. So maybe Fredensborg Canyon doesn't get quite as much sun, but I feel as though it sounds as though you are doing a great job of mitigating that, given the circumstances.
Thank you.
And nobody likes to get rid of a tree.
No.
You certainly have a much harder task than we do in your project.
Yeah.
Our decision,
Yeah.
I mean, with the retaining walls and all that, look forward to peeking over the hill at it sometime.
Yeah.
And, we won't show.
yeah, you should have some isobars to show you the elevation changes or something. It's extraordinary, unless you really stop, as I did, and, you look down that canyon, it's got some topographical features.
It does, and yeah, I mean, the view for me from up there, looking south is incredible, so.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful looking property.
thank you.
Yeah, gorgeous.
And I think you've made a good choice with your roof as far as kind of blending in. I don't know, are there any comments on the
And
Yeah,
color,
yeah.
paint colors
Yeah.
are lovely.
I think it's terrific.
Yeah, be a nice addition to the neighborhood. And very private from the looks of it.
Staff, is there anything that you'd like to emphasize or point out here?
No, well, yes, the retaining wall is a buff color, so, you know, again, taking the colors up the hill. The lighting was designed dark sky compliant, and it was identified in the package. And I think the landscaping plan was provided here, and I think it's respectful of the open area that this house is being built in.
Yeah, I agree.
And the lighting is, I think you said is dark sky compliant,
Correct.
right?
Shielding.
Can I,
The letter in Susan Bott's letter, Susan Bott's letter indicates that, you know, she's not certain about the lights because they're not specified, spec that way,
She's
but
still on.
that they're made, I know, but she made a point in her letter that it's, appears they may not be compliant.
can I, so the page that she was referring to, page 68, was referring to just the doors and the windows.
Right.
The lighting that he is proposing is on page 72.
Okay, page 72.
Yes.
Susan, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see that. On page 72, it has the Franklin Ironworks Sarnet, high black outdoor wall light, high black LED landscape path light. Okay, yeah, you got it, I see it.
And I wanted to make a positive comment about this applicant, and I appreciate them picking up lights that I think are perfect. So,
Okay,
good
great,
for them.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to move that we approve the project as presented.
Okay, any other final comments? It's been moved and seconded to approve the project at 781 Greensboro Canyon Road. As presented, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you.
congratulations on your new place,
Buses for zero.
or soon to be new place.
Yeah, that's quite a parcel out there. Okay,
Did anybody else pull up there and say, oh, where am I gonna park? And here, figure this out.
actually, I
I know
took
that
my
someone-
e-bike over there.
Oh, that's
I know
Did it make it up
someone-
the hill?
What?
Yeah.
Did it make it up the hill?
Well, yeah, and I live over on Nysted, so I went up to Viborg,
Okay.
yeah, and that made it up that hill.
Yes, I know some of the neighbors there, and I tried to scope it out, and I still couldn't quite figure out where, from their yard, and I still couldn't quite figure out where it was.
I didn't go into the lane, but I was able to stop without, double parking on the roadway.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
one-
interesting because you can't really see much,
You
but you
can't.
can hear the skate park and the people skateboarding, and that's it.
Funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
Down
Oh,
Hans
that's
Christian
sure.
Park.
Yeah.
Sure.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Carries up the little
Mhm.
creek
Yeah,
road over
right,
there.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and just to answer your question, some of the conditions of approval include pull-out for the fire department. It also includes providing a parking space on site for guests. So those have been incorporated in the design.
Yeah,
Good.
okay, great. Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you.
Okay.
Planning status update. I think we have handed out
We have handouts and you'll also have
an
it.
update of the general plan, but with emphasis on the design component.
Right, so this is a discussion of where we are in the general plan update and specifically starting to talk to you and having these discussions about the design element update. Obviously, it's sort of the heart of solving a very special element that's not existent in other communities. So we wanted to really take the time and start this conversation with you as the DRC. You have a couple of representatives on the general plan GPAC, but the committee as a whole, as the DRC, will be asked to do some work on the design element itself. Just for those who might be listening but weren't paying attention to where we are in the general plan update, we just had a joint meeting with the City Council and the Planning Commission where they did approve unanimously the recommendations of the GPAC. And the GPAC, once again, is the 15 members, volunteers from the community that are working hard and will continue to work hard over the next few months on reviewing all of the elements. So we have the preferred alternative for land use now. We are moving forward with all of the specific elements updates. And the design element, as I said, is very important to the character of solving, so we want to make it right and ensure that we engage you early on. So I have with us online today our consultant, Frank Gibbons, with Meteor Harnish, who will walk us through the presentation. And then he'll also mention the audit for this element and some of the elements of how we could structure it. So we're not looking for any final decisions from you today. We're looking for a beginning of the conversation, and we'll work through it over the next several months. Go ahead, Brent.
Perfect. And do I have the ability to share screen?
Yes, you should be able to just go to the share screen button.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Well, good evening, DRC. It's good to see you again. This is the second time that the general plan consultant team has been before you. My name's Brent Gibbons. I'm familiar with a few of you on DRC as you're part of the GPAC, and welcome to the others. As Amy had touched on, tonight is really our starting point on the community design element review as we start to move into the policy document phase of the general plan update. And the policy document includes the elements that were just referenced, or chapters. So I'm going to go through a presentation in a PowerPoint, and then I'll open it up for discussion. So let me share my screen, and we will get this presentation going. Let's see, there it is. Perfect, okay. So what I'd like to do is just give a little bit more overview of where we've gone so far. Zena just touched on it at the 30,000 foot level, and then start to walk through just what the community design element includes. All of you are very familiar with this, and my intent is not to walk through each of the goals or policies or the guidelines section at the end. This is just a preliminary discussion and presentation, and we'll plan on coming back to subsequent DRC meetings to get your input moving forward through this process. So just a brief overview of where we've been. This should look familiar to some of you. This is our general plan update process timeline. The project is in a series of 6 different phases, everything from project initiation at the front end to an eventual adoption. That's our goal at the end of the project. Adoption is slated at this point for late spring 2023. What I've shown here on the screen are a series of check marks within some of these bubbles, and these are tasks that we have completed with the community so far, and with city staff, the GPAC, the council, and the commission. We've gone through a project initiation, which at the front end starts to look at the different components of this project and how they're all going to correlate. Phase 2 touched on existing conditions and trends. That's the existing conditions and trends workbook, which is available on the general plan website, and that looks at where solving is today. And we do that to understand the context moving forward and how that affects the future of the community. Number 3, alternative choices. Last Monday night, Zenia had mentioned that the commission and council unanimously voted on a preferred alternative. They voted to move forward with the GPAC preferred alternative, which looks at variations in some of the land use designations to accommodate some potential housing, primarily through mixed use style development, as well as additional capacity for office and retail uses to help serve future employment needs of Solvang. Now we're moving into phase 4, and this is the meat of a general plan. This is your general plan elements or your chapters. Each of these include a set of goals, subsequent policies, and then what we like to call them implementation programs. And those are your action items. That's a checklist. And those implementation programs allow the council to use those as a guidebook for future decisions that are made by them. The state also tracks those implementation programs through what's known as a general plan annual report, which is done every year by your city staff. They prepare that and then send it off to the state. In phase 5, that's our CEQA assessment, and then off to adoption. Throughout this process too, there's GPAC meetings. We've had several of them and several more to come. There's community engagement that's been involved. We've had 3 community workshops. There will be a 4th that'll get into the overall general plan when it's complete. And then we're also working on the city's housing element for the 6th cycle. So that's working its way through. So there's a lot of different components with this project. Let's see, there we go. So the different deliverables that are out so far, I mentioned the existing conditions and trends workbook. This is shown here on your screen. This is the snapshot of current conditions as we start to understand the framework of the community and how that affects the process moving forward. The way I like to think about it is if we don't understand the foundation of Solvang, we can't necessarily help assist the community in looking forward and looking at different options or applications for future change if desired, or how to maintain or upgrade certain areas or opportunities within the community as we look out 20 years. And then there's the alternatives report. This is what was approved last Monday, and this gets into the bigger picture ideas for potential change in the community. Not saying that change will occur, but if change does occur, what does that do? What are the implications? And we got down into that discussion with the GPAC and with the commission and council, and they moved forward with a preferred alternative. And so now we're starting to look to the elements. And the community design element in particular is extremely important. And this is because Solvang hinges on the city's unique identity. It's old world Danish style architecture. That is what puts Solvang on the map. That is what drives people to visit the community. And it's what makes the community so unique. And so as part of this, the city currently has a community design element. And this element is an optional element, so as a greater understanding of a general plan, the state mandates that every jurisdiction has a series of elements. And there are mandated ones you have to have, like mobility, which is circulation, or land use, or environment, or safety. There's also a host of other elements which are known as optional, and that could be everything from economic development to community design. And obviously community design is extremely important to the city, so the city currently has a community design element that was adopted back in 1988 and has served the community over the last 20 plus years. And this is a chance to take an opportunity to look at that as a refresher, maybe make some modifications or any additions. So we're going to work with the DRC through this process. Since you are the design review committee, it's important to get your feedback as you review projects using these guidelines, using these criteria. That's your role as part of the community. So the community design element has these series of focus areas, everything from architecture and site planning, landscaping, streetscapes, entry treatments, and so forth. So that's how it is divided up. The current element also has 4 different purpose statements which help guide where the goals and policies and then eventual guidelines in the element tend to move toward. I don't feel like I need to read each of these on the screen. Most of you are probably already aware with these, but it's important because the purpose of this element and how these are laid out, these purpose statements, will help guide and have guided development and architectural application and urban design within the city over the last 20 plus years. Now, Zini had mentioned the fact that there was a general plan audit, and that we're gonna be asking the DRC to do a little work, so a little homework. And at the beginning of this process, what we like to do is we like to prepare an audit of your current general plan. So every element in the general plan has an audit. What's shown here on the screen is a snapshot of the community design audit. And the purpose of the audit is to go through each goal, each policy, and then each action or measure, and list them all, and then ask city staff, in this case we're going to ask the DRC, to review each of these and provide comments on whether this is still applicable, whether how it's written is clear, is it objective, is it something that needs modifications, any additions, or is it not relevant anymore? Should it get removed? And this is very important because this audit will help the consultant team and city staff form a revised or updated community design element. This is where the rubber meets the road. So whatever DRC provides to us as recommendations and considerations, we take into account and pull in. And we're going to be relying more on the DRC since you are the design arm of the city. So it's crucial that that we coordinate with you through this process to work through this general plan audit. We're not going to go through the audit tonight. We've provided city staff with a copy of this audit that they will provide to all of you. And our hope is to coordinate with the DRC, have you fill them out each individually, bring it back to another DRC meeting where we can walk through this process and go through each of these items and further elaborate and explain some of the changes or recommended modifications the DRC would like to see to some of your existing community design element goals, policies, actions, or even your guidelines. You may be familiar with the fact that the way that the current community design element is laid out now is very unique. So we start off with a typical section that focuses on that higher level design, not only citywide, but in specific areas, either in the village core or outside the village core. There are a series of goals and there are a series of policies. At the back end of the element, we have, how I'd like to put this, they're called, it's a guideline section, but the way that some of these guidelines are written are more regulatory in nature. So it's something that you would most likely see in a zoning ordinance or a zoning code or the city's municipal code. It gets into the very granular specifics of tree sizes when you plant them. It gets into height specifics. It gets into roof pitches. And there's a lot of language that's used that is more regulatory by nature. So instead of saying should, which leaves it open for interpretation, almost like an encouragement, there's terminology that's used such as shall, where shall is a requirement and has teeth. So as we start to look through this element, and this is something that I wanted to just kind of pitch to DRC tonight, is when we start to review this element and modify it, do we maintain the element's current structure that includes those guidelines or standards at the end, or do we remove those standards and guidelines at the end and eventually set those up for future codification? And one purpose for doing that, and that's just an option, it's not a route we're necessarily taking, I'm just trying to pitch some ideas here. One route for that is that it actually provides teeth to the different design standards or guidelines. So it actually codifies them. You would evaluate projects based on those out as part of your municipal code. So that's one option. Another option is just to leave the structure as is. And I'm going to lean on the DRC to tell the consultant team and city staff if the current structure is fine, if it's working. So there's a few different avenues that we can take when we start to look and evaluate the community design element. So the role of the DRC, we're asking the group to review the existing community design element. So take a pass at it and then complete the general plan audit matrix on this element. And then what we'll do is we'll coordinate with city staff to set up additional DRC meetings where we can walk through all of your comments or suggestions moving forward. And at a larger level, talk about the overall layout and organization of the element. And that's where I talked about, do we keep it same content structure as it is now, it's formatting? Or do we take a different approach and really focus the element on just policy and then take the standards out of it and codify those standards? So there's some different approaches that we can take. So this pretty much concludes my presentation. I know it's a mouthful, it's a lot to take in. This is just the first step of many as we start to walk through this element. So this isn't the end all of the conversation tonight, this is just the beginning. So what I'd like to do is hand it back to the DRC chair if there are any questions that you have of me or city staff on this process, or any initial thoughts that we should consider. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Esther, I feel like I want to turn to you first. This is really good. I think my impression is that it's positive. I think it's. I'm looking forward to going through the elements of the design element components as you described them here. We have that draft, and that's good work, I think, and I think it's a good step in the planning process. But Esther?
Well, I think I gotta say that having this audit is gonna be extremely useful resource here, and I also would like to see staff helping us a little bit by pulling out relevant sections of code and more with the guidelines, because we all know that the guidelines make our job very difficult because they're not clear. But we also know that there are exceptions to every rule, and giving a color palette as an example, as a finite number of choices that's rather limited is something we may not want to do. So I think this is interesting whether you want to codify the elements or not. The should versus shall, I just learned something a little bit more about language that will be useful. And I definitely think we need our own special meeting with just this subject to address this.
That was gonna be my question, could we arrange a meeting? Because, I think this is a collaborative process, and obviously we'll all have our own thoughts and opinions about it, but we're a pretty good collaborative group, so I would definitely be open to having a special meeting that we could just sort of brainstorm and discuss some of these things. And probably some of us will have insight on things that some of us don't understand. I'm sure that you guys will have a lot of things to say about things that I don't fully understand, so it would be helpful to me, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think I do think that if we've all been on lots of committees, if this committee were different in some ways, I wouldn't go for it, but I think this committee is really up to that. I think that's great. One thing I was noticing, I've seen in this audit, it's great. I've read through it before the meeting started, and it's intriguing. Also on this page, which is the element focus page, okay, it says, obviously it's an excerpt of the 1988 community design element. And then that's where you really have the shall language instead of the should language in the policies that are on that page that's sort of covered up. I'm not sure you can see that. You probably can't.
Yeah, no, I can't.
You know, yeah, is that where some of the elements of the audit came from, or that is the 1988 community design standard sheet? But this is all what you have here. What's written here in the audit is really just an outgrowth of the committee's work. Is that it? Okay.
Okay. I also want to really, having been to GPAC meetings and having at times very ambitious goals for one meeting, and with the GPAC there are 15 members, which has enabled us to really get a lot done, in large part because each time there's been key people who've done an extraordinary amount of work in preparation for the meetings. Work group of just 5, this is a very detailed process. I really think we need as much help as we can get before we walk in the door in the form of materials from both, the general plan, you hired guns, and the city, to be able to make the most progress. I do have a question too about our role, and we are advisory role to the GPAC committee. Am I correct in understanding our role? Please clarify that for me. Maybe that's you, Zena.
So you are or GPAC has an advisory role to the city, and including city council. It's not a city council appointed committee, but it does advise through this process. The DRC has an advisory role to the city council for anything that has to do with design. So your role in this process would be to really be engaged and to be kind of the experts, the leaders of this design element, which will then go to the city council for final approval.
Much like the planning commission just had their role for the portion that was approved last
Correct.
week.
And the planning commission, that's actually codified in the code that they had to make those findings. This is a little bit more fluid, but your purpose and how you're codified and formed is very clear that this is part of sort of your role, and you will definitely be using at the end of the day, as Brent mentioned, whatever is formed through this process for approval of projects, etc.
What the planning commission approved though was something that was recommended to them to approve by GPAC.
Correct.
I mean, it
Yeah.
it came from GPAC to
And
the planning commission,
yes.
and then they went on.
And the GPAC recommendation came with guidance from the team there and, the city staff, but also was guided by community input. So that's gonna be my next question, is that part of this upcoming meeting? Where is the community input, or is there?
Yeah. The upcoming workshop that we're having next week is on housing element only, so that's
Right.
completely different focus. We can definitely, as we progress through this process, can think about folding in additional community input, and you are a Brown Act Batty, so if we do schedule a working session, that's special meeting for this process specifically, that might be a great opportunity to once again invite community input through that process.
Yeah, because I think the community, we need their thoughts on this as well. Again, we're just 5 people here, so the more input and the more information we have, the more informed we as a body can be in making those decisions and recommendations, I think I should say.
And if you don't mind, I want to point something else out as well. So the structure and the organization of the element, and in the PowerPoint, I have that one slide that says element focus, and it has 5 or 6 categories. The community is not held necessarily to those. So this update allows us to think outside the box and maybe expand on those categories. Maybe look at other areas in the city where there should be some urban design or architectural applications. And community design looks beyond architecture and how a building is formed, but it also looks at pedestrian spaces, right-of-ways, entries into the community. So this is quite a large undertaking for the DRC. It's not solely focused on development and what development looks like. It's the public realm around it too. So this is a much larger holistic approach as part of this element. So I just wanted to throw that out there so that when you start to review these things and you go, well, it's not just the structure, it's the site, but it's not just the site, it's what's surrounding it. Or how it feels when you're in the center of Solvang. Or what does it feel like in the more residential neighborhoods? Or what does it look like when you're entering the city? from San Ynez or from Yuleton. Those are important aspects, and we'll try to look to covering different types of urban design, community design, public space design, and how those are all integrated through this process. So those are some larger pictures to consider. I did talk to Xenia too. We have example community design elements. Now these other communities, they're not solving, and I understand that, but they do provide an idea of where most community design elements head from that 30,000 foot perspective. And so if that would help the DRC working through this just to see how other communities formulate them, not saying that you would mimic it at all, but it just gives you more examples, I would be glad to provide that to city staff so you can see that. One of the most recent ones that I led was for the town of Los Gatos up in the Bay Area. We prepared a community design element for them that included urban design districts. Within each of those districts, there are sets of policies that get into street activation for mixed use development, or get into 360 architecture for residential structures, and how all of those interact the public realm. Street beautification, that's all wrapped into it because it's all community design. It's the design of the community, entry points into the city, how does signage react? They have a freeway running through, so do you do freeway signage or beautification of on-ramps and off-ramps? So you can see where this goes. So if that's something that would help, and I would be more than happy to provide that element to city staff to share with you if you'd like.
I think you answered a couple of my questions, because one of them that I was going to bring up is this element focus, because I wouldn't necessarily look at this as being, the specific focus or limited focus. So that's good to know, and hey, I'm all about starting with somebody else's successful plan and using the elements that apply, so.
I agree.
Imitation is a sincerest form of flattery.
And, and although the city clearly is different from ours, perhaps you have something that's a smaller town that has a historic downtown or something of that sort. But I also know that the housing element that was just approved talks a lot about mixed use. So these things about urban design developments are gonna have their place both in the TRC area and perhaps outside of that as well. So that would be useful information.
I can provide city staff. Los Gatos obviously is that's our most recent, and I would say it was a pretty successful element. It's quite large. It's about 68 pages, but it really does get into a holistic approach to design and how it's integrated with all. I mean, they have a series of historic districts that are wrapped in, so it really takes into full account design on a community level. Now they're larger than Solvang by about 6 times, but I think it's actually it's a good example to look at where community design elements head now, and I think it could spur some ideas, and I really think some concepts in there, even though the population of Solvang is smaller, I think some concepts in there are applicable to Solvang in so many ways, because you do have unique areas in the city which need some specialized attention. And that's how Los Gatos approached it as well. And they have their historic downtown, they have their mixed use areas where they're focusing more mixed use development. So very similar in that aspect. And design's really important to them. So it was one of the key elements in their community.
Do we have more than one opportunity to discuss this, because this is more ambitious than one meeting, right? I think about the very first GPAC meeting. I think it was our vision meeting, if I recall the right name for it. And it was like, oh my gosh, how did we do this in 2 hours? And somehow we did, but it was because people came very, very prepared. So please tell me we don't do this all in 1 2-hour meeting.
It's actually just one 1 hour meeting.
Okay, drinks better be included.
We've primed you. We can coordinate with city staff on the amount of meetings it takes to pull this through. And in order to get a complete element to move forward.
Yeah, and not that I'm really advocating for all kinds of extra meetings, but I also want to be realistic on what can be achieved within one meeting.
They all have to be noticed in public though, too, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Is the Solvang general plan, and when I see community design element, is that online?
Yes, and
Okay.
I can.
Is that online someplace other than the Solvang plan site, or is that where it is?
It is online on our city website, but I will put together a packet for you with all of the existing, the element, the design guidelines, the sign ordinance once again. And just speaking of that, I think a little bit of the confusion that we have worked through is the role of the design guidelines and those kind of not having those teeth. And I think what Brent brought up, speaking of the element being the guiding policy, the bigger picture, and then actually codifying some of the specifics into the code, just like the sign ordinances, that makes it very easy to apply to specific projects. So I think that's the conversation that we'll continue to have as you review all those documents. Just keep that on the back of your mind.
Okay.
I have a question on timeline. I see that this sort of piece of the plan is to exist maybe through the summer. So are we to assume that our part in this will probably wrap up by the end of the summer? If we do have a meeting or two, talking about like.
So I think we were targeting timeline about 6 months for the elements or so, and then we go into environmental review.
Okay.
Okay. So are you suggesting that we, in our regular meetings or special meetings, or do you have a
I
recommendation?
think I heard that the special meeting is a good idea, and I do think it's a good idea. So I can just reach out to all of you and see what your availability is, and also with all the other city meetings, GPACs and workshops that are going on, we'll pick a date maybe within the next month. You'll have all the materials ahead of time to review. I'll get you the audit itself in an Excel spreadsheet that will be a little easier for you to use. And we'll just plan on having a good, robust discussion at the next special meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
And maybe there'll be a super long agenda one month and we can,
Yeah.
we'll be focused on that.
And I can definitely do a little bit of outreach into the community to make sure that it's noticed ahead of time, so that if anybody wants to be engaged in that process, then they can join in that open meeting and the working session.
Yeah, I do encourage that.
Right.
And everybody needs to have an opportunity to speak if they wish. And if they don't, then that speaks for itself too. I think sometimes that means that.
To give up the right to complain.
Well, and maybe it's not just a complacency, but rather a satisfaction with the status quo.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think where you are now is terrific, and I note that the amendment that was approved by the planning commission passed the city council 4-0, I guess. Was it, or 5-0? Was it? I think it was maybe
I
4-0.
believe it was 5-0.
5-0. Yeah.
Everybody that was there approved it, which is good. And
Yeah.
I think it's really worthy of mentioning that, because the GPAC is, again, I said 15 people, very diverse perspectives, and yet all of those elements came together and everybody arrived at a unanimous decision. And that's, to me, was amazing. I totally expected there to be dissent in there somewhere by the time we got to the housing element and had it all nailed down,
Yeah,
but there wasn't.
And Mrs. Breen made sure, in her comments to the city council, made sure, that they understood that it was 14-0, that it,
Yeah.
before the city council. So I think that should cut the debate by the city council by half an hour.
And I hope that we're able to achieve a plan and recommendations in a similar fashion.
Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Committee member comment, any other committee member comments? I think we will look for an opportunity to have a meeting before the third Thursday of April. hopefully. And we'll look forward to that, and I think, I'm impressed with where they are and the direction they're going. I think that's great. So congratulations to you, Xenia. I know you've done a lot of pulling the heavy oar on that one. There have been a lot of other people that have as well, I know. I appreciate Sophia's great work on the materials today. I mean, it shows a real nice change about the condition and how that compares with the requirements. I like that setting up side by side. That's a good advancement.
Yes, thank you very much. It makes our jobs easier sometimes. And I really like the current projects information.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and the current project information is
tells us what to be prepared for, and it even allows us a little time as we're in the community to check out the locations, especially when they're in the downtown area and it's easy to see. So we can kind of see that during our day-to-day activities and passing through and consider the impacts of what's coming up for the future. Because sometimes I feel like we've all kind of talked up here during the meetings and said what's really important is being able to physically see the locations and be able to go out in the field prior to being here in order to be able to make decisions.
Right.
So thank you.
Yeah, hugely important.
Yeah.
I'm leaving in my car, so when I'm driving around, I go, oh,
Yeah,
that's
that one. Well, and I think of how we were challenged when we started in this role a little over a year ago in our decision-making, and staff and our committee, I think we've done a really good job of working together to make it a more streamlined process. It's, it took a while to get here, but now we understand much better what we're doing, and you're helping giving us your feedback and direction in a consistent manner that allows for the decision-making to be consistent too. Going back to that kind of fair application and being able to apply that equitably.
Well, this meeting with 4 agenda items that were pretty meaty, I think, is a good example. There wasn't a lot of, because I think you guys are mitigating a lot of things before they get here as far as paint colors and different things, so that's.
I agree.
This.
It's really an interesting mix of issues. I mean, I wasn't even sure why we were reviewing the design of, a home in Friedensburg Canyon.
That no one can see.
But we did.
Exactly. Okay. It's city staff comment.
I don't have any additional comments, thank you.
Happy
No,
St.
would
Patrick's
you-
Day.
Happy St.
Would you
Patrick's
share a couple
Day.
things that relate? I think we have an interest in a couple things that were before the city council. One has to do with the decision on Copenhagen Drive and the plan from now till whenever on the changes involving, design changes and so forth that involve the Copenhagen Drive, whether it reverts back to status quo ante or else it's some new design element, driven as it should be by city and city staff. But what the role of DRC is in that, same thing with regard to city park improvements and so forth.
So I think this is all information or excuse me for interrupting.
No, that's
Matt. This is the city council, kind of an update on what occurred at the city council meeting that impacts us.
Right.
Sure, of course. Let me try to remember the long agenda from Monday. Of course, the first item was approval of all of the changes that have to do with the DRC and the planning commission. We've already mentioned that. So now we are officially in that process with having those roles very clearly defined, which will be very helpful to staff and I'm sure to yourselves. The next item was, the Copenhagen Drive, which is being reopened. The reopening date will be April 18th. And we are working between now and that date to first work with all of the businesses which are impacted, who have been allowed to work to expand temporarily under COVID-19 into public spaces, including parking spaces. So those businesses now, those permits would be revoked and those businesses will be notified. We'll work with them to remove all the equipment. This is actually not only applicable to Copenhagen Drive, it's also applicable to all of the businesses that are operating in public places. So you will see quite a bit of change on Mission West side of the city, where there's quite a bit of activity. Once we get everything removed, city staff will remove all the pergolas, and we'll also do some street cleaning and restriping of the parking spaces that have been kind of heavily utilized with traffic or foot traffic. And then we'll be ready to reopen. So as of April 18th, it will look like it did before COVID-19. We'll see what the reaction will be. There will be a lot more parking spaces, obviously, as Copenhagen will be completely reopened. But the City Council did also direct to continue to work on developing a potential site somewhere in downtown, which may be the Copenhagen, which may be some other alternative site, but to look for opportunities through the general plan update for a project that may create that feel and that space of a European style plaza, which I think has been a concept that has been talked in Solomon for a long time. So we're expanding our view a little bit from just being focused on yes, close Copenhagen or open Copenhagen. So just trying to look for any location that may be good for that type of project. So we'll continue to work on that. And then the Solving Park, you will notice that we are currently doing some resodding there. The grass hasn't been updated in quite a few years, and there's a lot of events and a lot of things happening in that busy park. So we're taking an opportunity to go ahead and renew all the grass while we have the short opportunity to do so. We haven't an event come in on the 30th of April, so we're going to be definitely open by that. It will take about 4 to 5 weeks for the grass to settle in. You will see that in the next week or so the entire park is going to be closed off, as we will actually resod the entire park. We're also making some minor improvements while the area is closed off to the gazebo itself. It's just a little bit dated. We're doing painting, making sure the lights work, looking at repainting the railing and basically giving it a little bit of a fix while we have the public fenced off from it as we're doing the grass. And then the final item will be there was consideration of either going forward with a shade structure in the park or adding some more pavement area that doesn't get damaged as there's events. It provides an additional space for people to set up their equipment when there's an event. So that is the project that was approved by City Council. So we're moving forward with a permeable pavement type of project. And that would be something that I would ask you as DRC to review in terms of look and feel. We have some ideas on how to maybe even bring a logo that gets kind of set onto those pavements or any other ideas that you may have. So we'll look forward to your input as soon as possible and definitely by the next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions or comments on it? I think that's a great summary. We appreciate being updated on that. Terrific. Any other business to brought?
No, wait, before, we have to say Happy St. Patrick's Day. And we
Anna Marie wins the contest for best dressed.
So, yeah, good meeting.
Adjourned.